Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, members, opening announcements. I have just a couple of very brief ones that I want to make as Lord Mayor. I want to congratulate Dan Dempsey from Lurgan Bowling Club, who this year became President of the Northern Ireland Bowling Association. It's a big honour for Dan, it's a big honour for the bowling club in the park and for the Borough, and I wish him well in his year ahead. Also, last week I had a group in from Craigavon Marie Curie fundraising group who have completed 20 years collecting for Marie Curie across the Craigavon area. This is a small group, and they have over the 20 years collected in excess of £90,000, which is fantastic for a small group, but they have indicated they would very much welcome anybody else who would like to join them. So maybe could I ask elected members just to feed that out into their communities. It would be great to see some other young members coming through and helping with what is a very, very deserving cause. Thank you. Moving on then to apologies. I have an apology from Alderman Paul Greenfield. Are there any other apologies from the floor? Councillor Hockian.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, Councillor Sorkin-McGowan, please.
Thank you. Alderman Barr.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think Gordon, Councillor Kennedy is online and possibly Alderman Burns, I'm not sure.
Thank you. I have a notification that Alderman Kennedy is online and also Councillor Armstrong. That's, sorry, Councillor Ferguson, not Armstrong. Apologies to Councillor Ferguson. And also Alderman Burns then. Thank you. Okay. Moving on then to council minutes. Can I have a proposer and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of March be taken and read as a correct record? Proposed Councillor Hare, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Are we all agreed to adopt the decisions contained within the council minutes and to move on? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are members agreed that we take these as the meeting progresses, or is there anyone who particularly wants to raise one at this point? Okay. Moving on then to committee minutes. Before I seek a proposal for the adoption of the minutes of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee, I want to hand over to Tom Lavery, Head of Building Control, who will give an update in relation to dual language street naming report in relation to Ballyoran Hill, Port Down. And at this point, can I indicate also that I've been made aware that Councillor Ashley Mallon is online as well. Tom.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. Members, at the 1st of April meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee, the minutes record that members' recommendation was that Council exercise its discretionary power to erect dual language street signage at Ballyoran Hill and Portadown. Following that meeting at approximately 5 p.m, officers received an email correspondence from an objector. There was evidence has since been provided that an attempt was made to submit that email on the 31st of March. However, due to an error in the email address, it was not received prior to the committee meeting. Members of the committee will recall that the same correspondence was referenced during deliberations on a separate application for Corcoran Gardens, where the committee decided to refer that matter back to the next meeting of the PRAC for full consideration of the correspondence. Since then, officers have also received further items of correspondence objecting to the application for Ballyoran Hill. Officers asked members to be mindful that the correspondence mentioned this evening has not been fully considered by the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. In the interests of consistency, officers would recommend that all correspondence be referred back to the Planning and Regulatory Services and to allow members to properly consider and weight this additional correspondence along with all previously reported information. While members may be disappointed that a decision is not taken this evening, this approach is consistent with previous council practice. including the Woodside Hill application in September 2023. On that occasion, correspondence was received after committee consideration, but just prior to full council. Members were advised in similar terms, and the decision was to refer the matter back to the Planning and Regular Services Committee. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Can I ask members, are they content that we agree the issue is brought back to the May meeting of the Planning Services Committee? And if I bring in Councillor Paul Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom. Yes, I just want to make sure that when it does come back to committee, all information is there. This email that went to the wrong address, I want to see copies of it as well. I want to see dates, times, just all relevant information that is supplied.
Okay, thank you. I take it that can be provided, Tom? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Taking that in the round. Do you want to come in, Tom? There you go.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, yes, I can concur that all information we have received will be at that committee.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have a proposer and a seconder in that case? That we come back to that in the month of May in the Planning Regulatory Services Committee. Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Kevin Savage, seconded by Councillor Armstrong, and agreed. Thank you. Moving on then to the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee meeting. Yeah, okay, yep. Okay, I'm informed here we just need the minutes of that committee agreed, and are we happy to move on? Yes, thank you. Can I have a proposer and seconder that the minutes of Environmental Services Committee meeting held on the 2nd of April be taken as read and approved as correct? The Chair, Councillor Duffy, was an apology for that meeting. The Vice Chair, Councillor McElrath, are you happy to propose? Thank you. And he was also an apology. Councillor Duffy chaired. Councillor, I'm hearing voices on all sides here. Councillor Nelson chaired. You're happy to propose, Councillor? Thank you. Someone to second. Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Okay. There's one issue that I want to raise in relation to this, and that is ES 57, where Councillor Jude Mallon raised an issue in relation to e-scooters and scramblers. And I'm very content with the suggestion that Councillor Mallon made. But in relation to what's going on across this borough at the moment, these e-scooters and e-scramblers are becoming a public safety hazard and have over this past couple of years. And to me, it's getting worse all the time. They're a source of antisocial behaviour. They're operating at high speeds on footpaths and roads. There's a lack of regulation, inadequate enforcement, and as a result of that, and not recently, very recently actually, there was a death of a lady in Dublin. How long are we going to be around here until someone's injured or killed with these in our borough? So I would like to make a proposal that we call an urgent meeting of this council, any interested members with the PSNI, to obtain clarity as to what the law is to e-scooters and e-scramblers. So I'm making that proposal. Going to bring in Councillor Hockin. I assume it's on the same vein, Councillor Hockin? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I think Councillor Jude Mallon and yourself have raised very important points here about these e-scooters. They're a blight on the community, and I think your proposal is to be welcomed. I think it was raised by some of my colleagues. I think Councillor Nelson raised it at the recent PCSP meeting, but I would second your proposal tonight because I think this is something we need to get a grip of. It is an issue, as you pointed out, that goes far beyond local areas and our borough, but it is something we need to get our heads around, so I'm happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Mark Baxter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was just coming in to second as well, but I'm happy to support the proposal. I don't know if we can widen it out a bit to these all-nation scramblers as well that are making an appearance and coming into this time of the year, even We had it even in Donegal the other night. There was a scrambler tearing up and down the road, no lights, 11 o'clock at night, and the e-scooters flying through the middle of the village. So it's even gone out into the leafy suburbs of the area I represent. So if we can widen that maybe out and just have a discussion with police as well in terms of scramblers as well, if that's possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I just want to come in to show cross-party agreement on this. And indeed, I think it was recently debated at the Northern Ireland Assembly as well. I think the law is clear in terms of outside of private land, they are illegal. You know, people have been injured, both pedestrians been hit by some of these things, and then some of the users themselves. And I do note, I think the PSNI recently seized a number of such items recently in around the Craigavon, wider Craigavon area. So at least there is sort of a proactive approach on the ground. But it is a growing issue and something needs done until someone is seriously injured or worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. I wasn't aware that, if correct, that e-scooters, e-scramblers, whatever, have been seized, but I would welcome that. I still think there's a lot of grey areas around this here, so if we're content, we'll initiate a meeting with the police as soon as possible, and any interested or free member that can attend them. Thank you for your cooperation in relation to that, members. Now, I'm being told here that I have to go back and seek a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the Planning and Regulatory Services meeting held on the 1st of April be taken and read as a correct record, subject to the above decision in relation to dual language street naming at Ballyoran Hill. Okay? Can I have a proposer, please? I think Councillor Savage, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Mrs. O'Dowd and agreed. Thank you. Okay. Moving on then, can I have a proposer and seconder of the minutes of the Governance, Resources and Strategy Committee meeting on the 8th of April, read and approved? Councillor Evans, the chair, was an apology for that meeting. Councillor Mack, are you happy to post? Thank you. And can I have a committee member to second, please? Councillor Ms. O'Dowd, thank you. Are we all agreed to the recommendations contained within the Governance, Resources and Strategy Committee and happy to move on? Thank you. Can I have a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the Community Wellbeing Committee held on the 13th of April be taken and read and approved as a correct record? Alderman Barr happy to propose. Councillor Hare happy to second. And we all agreed and happy to move on. Thank you. Can I have a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the Economic Development Regeneration Committee meeting held on the 14th of April be taken and read as a correct record? I'm going to bring in, first of all, Councillor Ashley Mallon.
Sorry, it all broke up there.
Okay, did you want to make a comment, Councillor Mallon?
No.
No, okay, sorry, okay. Okay, moving on then. Councillor McClellan, are you happy to propose? Thank you. Councillor Jude Mallon, the second. Thank you. We all agreed and happy to move on. Agenda item 4.6, can I have a proposer and second at the minutes of a special committee meeting held on the 16th of April be taken as read as a correct record? Councillor O'Hanlon, are you happy to propose? Thank you. Alderman Kennedy, are you happy to second? He hasn't come on. Right. Sorry, I think we have me. Alderman Kennedy.
Happy to second, Lord Mayor.
He wasn't at it. Okay, thank you. All right then. Thank you.
I was only at the 28th.
Okay, thank you. Right. Are we all agreed to adopt the recommendations contained within that special meeting and happy to move on? Thank you. Can I have a proposer and a seconder that the minutes of the HR committee meeting held the 22nd of April be taken and read and approved as a correct record? Councillor Hockey, and you happy to propose? Thank you. And Alderman Burns, are you happy to second? He's not online. No. Okay. Is there another member of the committee that's happy to second? Thanks, Councillor Lavery. Alderman Berry wants to come in. Yes, Alderman Berry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. And it's just in relation to the heading of the HR committee in relation to the location, just for interest sake, in relation to, and I appreciate delegated authority was given to these committees in December, so appreciate that, Lord Mayor. But just in relation to the 22nd of April, the HR committee met in the chamber, but also in the Sinn Féin party room. Why did they come in? Just maybe Elizabeth can answer this. Why did the meeting start in the actual chamber? Was there a technical fault with the equipment, or was there a particular reason? And then go into a party room. I think it happened also again on the 17th of February. It's just to get that clarity. And last but not least, I'd just like to ask Elizabeth in relation to these particular committees, because obviously a delegated authority there, but in relation to HR, in relation to the call-in, is she content that the decisions that were made in these, because obviously we're not to know what decisions are made in them, but was she content that that call-in period has been adhered to and no decisions were made or ratified until that? Because obviously we're well aware of the nature that we're in here in relation to the disciplinary and the grievance and the complaints. So are all of those particular issues with the senior officers involved, are they running in tandem, that it's not just, because I note on the note here it says in confidential report, it's a staff matter, but it's really staffing matters because
Okay,
it affects
Alderman
more
Berry,
than one
we're going
individual.
to move to Elizabeth at this point. Okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alderman Berry. I think it'd be more appropriate to take these questions in confidential, if that's okay, Alderman Berry. As you know, the HR committee was set up with certain terms of reference, and those terms of reference did include legal advice to be provided. We have the legal advisors available later on during confidential, and I think it'd be appropriate to take those questions in if the members contend.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then to the schedule of correspondence, agenda item 5. Do I need to get agreement there? Okay, yeah, I've already done one. Yeah. Well, okay. Okay, members. Can I have a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the special committee meeting held on the 24th of April be taken as read as a correct record? Councillor O'Hanlon, you happy to propose? Thank you. And Alderman Kennedy, who I take it was there on that occasion at least. Yeah, okay. I'll bring him in then.
Second, Lord Mayor, was there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Wish you a speedy recovery at home too. Thank you. And we're agreed. Yes, thank you. Okay. Schedule of correspondence. Moving on to agenda item 5, schedule of correspondence. There are 2 items there. 5.1 Birches Primary School, 5.2 DFIT&I Southern Lands Division. Our members, any members wish to comment on that? I have Councillor Kyle Moutre.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, if I can just come in very briefly in respect of item 5.1, the letter from Birches Primary School. Their school council has taken the very proactive step to raise road safety concerns, along with a petition signed by over 100 pupils from the school. This follows an incident on Monday, the 2nd of February, when a car accident occurred outside the school gates. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it has left children and parents and staff members feeling very vulnerable. So can I propose on the back of this letter that we write to DFI as a council and ask them to seriously consider the actions that the school have requested, and these include introducing a 20-mile-an-hour part-time speed limit, adding clear signage, and considering any other additional traffic calming measures following this incident, and taking account of speed on the road itself. And can I also just thank the school for circulating this letter to us as a council, both staff and the pupils, for their proactive action in ensuring that this matter is dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'm content to second the proposal from Councillor Moutre. quite frankly, there should be all 20 mile an hour outside all the schools. There are a number of incidents that have occurred. Indeed, in another Portadown primary school, there was a pupil knocked down outside the school quite recently. And the more safety measures which we can implement outside of schools, and the more vehicle drivers adhere to those additional road safety measures, the better, especially outside these rural primary schools. So content to second that proposal and hope DFI take heed.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Keith Hockin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And yes, I actually raised this matter with during our clinic outside, and I think the rationale at the minute is due to funding, that it's only applicable for schools that sit within the 60 mile an hour zone at present. But I know that the Minister has recently had a consultation out for the public, closed a number of days ago, so when we get some feedback from that, hopefully this will be picked up, because I think there's broad agreement across the Chamber that this is the kind of thing we should be involved in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's been proposed and seconded. Are members content? Thank you. And I want to make members aware that Councillor Mulholland has joined us online as well. Thank you for that. Members content with the next item then of correspondence. Then we have 4 items for noting. Members happy that we note items 5.3 to 5.6? Thank you. Councillor. Okay. Moving on to schedule of documents requiring the corporate seal for approval. We have 4 items as listed. Can I have a proposer and seconder to sign all of these legal documents, please? Councillor Herr, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Hockin, thank you. And agreed. Okay. Moving on then to agenda item 7. The first of our notices of motion tonight, and the first one is in relation to the blocking of the establishment of an independent environmental protection agency, to be proposed by Councillor Alexander, seconded by Councillor Lavery. So I'm going to ask the proposer to speak to the motion now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Alliance has long supported the delivery of an independent environmental protection agency because we recognise that thriving nature, clean water and access to beautiful landscapes are essential for our social and economic well-being. History is littered with examples for an independent environmental protection agency, and in Northern Ireland, setting this up as a strong example of invest to save. Our environmental dashboard is flashing red from decades of neglect. Following a detailed independent report recommending the establishment of an independent environmental protection agency, setting out the proposed functions and governance arrangements, Minister Muir approached the Executive at the start of November 2025 to ask for support in principle for its introduction. However, the DUP have said no, voting against a proposal in the Assembly and blocking progress at the Executive, despite the clear will expressed at the Assembly in support. As the 2 largest parties, the DUP and Sinn Féin, control the agenda at the Executive, and by preventing papers appearing for decision, they can essentially block them. The DUP has been using this tactic to delay and disrupt proposals from the dear Minister on climate action and environmental protection. The Independent Environmental Protection Agency is just another example of this. The DUP's undemocratic blocking of an independent environmental protection agency is just the latest example of why Northern Ireland's power-sharing structures are in desperate need of reform. The ability of the DUP to veto progress around the executive table is harming our environment and the communities that rely on clean air and drinking water. In consultation with local parties, we need the UK and Irish governments to urgently convene a process of reform to the Stormont institutions and end the politics of veto, ransom and delay. We need to reform our institutions to remove these kinds of blocks and vetoes. They are undemocratic and frequently abused. The Independent Environmental Protection Agency was a new decade, new approach commitment, an agreement the DUP signed up to. There should be no reason they could not give Minister Muir their support to establish one. So I would ask that all members in this chamber support this motion and send a clear message that our environment is a priority, protecting it is a priority, and any and all attempts to block progress by using vetoes, not just on this issue, but on all issues, is undemocratic, and this is why we need reform, and we must be strong in pursuing material and effective change at Stormont. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for your proposal? Councillor Lavery. Bring you in now, Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Following on for Councillor Alexander's remarks, we are already seeing the first signs of blue-green algae at Lough Neagh this year. Establishing an independent environmental protection agency would provide the framework needed for proper accountability and transparency in how we manage and safeguard the environment, allowing us to respond effectively to environmental challenges we face. The continued blocking approach of the DUP on measures to improve environmental protection, such as an independent EPA, is inexcusable. Parties need to act in the best interest of the whole country and not narrow sectoral interests. All other major parties support an independent EPA, yet our system allows one party to hold the rest of us back. It's undemocratic. This is just one example of why urgent institutional reform is needed. I would encourage all parties to support this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Move on then to Councillor Tim McClelland.
Lord Mayor, thank you for letting me in, and as members will know, I own and manage a farming business. Well, Lord Mayor, what a cheap headline-grabbing motion we have in front of us this evening, all courtesy of the Alliance Party. Aimed, of course, at allowing Councillor Lavery to take to social media expressing full outrage. There may be an election up ahead. Lord Mayor, through you to the Alliance councillors, you really did put in a lot of effort working up this motion. Members, this is a cut and paste motion that appeared in the NI Assembly on, I think it was the 10th of March. Frankly, Lord Mayor, this is a waste of a motion. Would the ratepayers, our constituents, not have benefited if the motion had been brought regarding the oil price shock, the hardship being caused, or perhaps something to help for families or for our business community within the borough? But no, Lord Mayor, ideology and pet projects are always more important for the Alliance Party. We in these benches stand with our hard-pressed families, with business and with our farming families, something I don't think the members bringing this motion do, but anyway, that's for them to answer to the electorate. Any wonder, given this demand for an independent environmental protection agency, some regard the Alliance Party as environmental fundamentalists. Lord Mayor, when Minister Muir failed to persuade executive colleagues of the need for this new agency, in effect more bureaucracy, he throws the toys out the pram. And then this cut and paste motion starts doing the rounds. Classic politics of deflection to take attention away from his own failure. Lord Mayor, regarding some of the wording within this motion, we have the Northern Ireland Environment Agency, which sits within Alliance Minister Muir's department. Perhaps if the Minister gave proper, appropriate oversight to NIEA, regulations already in place would be implemented with transparency and accountability. The Minister needs to look closer to home before demanding another quango be set up, especially when the proposal is uncosted and will inevitably, I fear, lead to duplication. Lord Mayor, earlier this evening we had Department for Infrastructure in. Lack of resources is their constant theme. Think of the resource needed to create another quango, perhaps hundreds of thousands of pounds, even more, perhaps. Think of it. The Alliance Party, I'm nearly finished, Lord Mayor, nearly finished, indulge me, thank you. The Alliance Party are obviously prioritising another quango over fixing the potholes on our roads. You couldn't make this up. In terms of the Loch Ness mentioned and the other environmental situations, these are very concerning. A gentle reminder to Minister Muir, the NIEA sits within his department and have been in place.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland. I have indulged you, but I've got to prefer to everybody here, but I think you've made your point.
We will be voting against this motion, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, Councillor Catherine Nelson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I grew up in and around the shores of Loch Ness, be it skimming stones at the bay shore, boat rides at the marina, feeding the loch's ducks, bird watching and nature walks at Oxford Island. Some of my fondest family memories are at the loch, and they're memories that I now create with my 2 daughters. So Loch Ness holds a special place in my heart, hence my recent eagerness to secure online access to Loch Ness Partnership meetings so that I can attend, learn more and contribute to tackling this issue. It's a cause we have been championing for years. And I want tonight to mention our eel fishermen, in particular the Donnelly family of Trasna, a lifelong tradition of eel fishing lost because of inaction and the condition of our loch. We owe it to them and families like them to fix our loch. I'm frankly disappointed that our council has been so lax. As a landowner bordering the loch, we have been a poor relation at every turn when it comes to dealing with the algae issue, particularly evident in our North and South Lake. Protecting our environment has to be a shared responsibility. That is why the discussion around establishing an independent environmental protection agency is an important one. But it's an issue that all parties can find common ground on, work together on, deliver on. Stronger environmental oversight and accountability should scare no one. They are necessary if we are properly to protect our natural environment, and our communities deserve confidence that environmental protections exist, are robust, credible and effectively enforced. And we can't speak out of both sides of our mouth. On one hand, expressing concern about environmental crisis such as Loch Ness, while on the other hand blocking measures designed to strengthen environmental accountability. So if we're serious about protecting our national environment, we must also recognise that environmental damage does not stop at our borders. Cooperation across the island will be essential if we are properly to tackle the challenges we face, from water quality to illegal dumping and wider environmental degradation. So no more false promises, no more political U-turns. Sinn Féin will support the motion tonight. And just to say clearly, we are up for the conversation about institutional reform and indeed have been working on this at Assembly level, albeit slight concern bringing in the British Secretary of State fills me with little confidence given his inaction of late when needed during a fuel crisis, so very little confidence that he will act for our environmental crisis. So, Lord Mayor, I thank the Alliance Party for bringing this tonight, for giving us an opportunity to speak on it, and I would urge all parties to find common ground on this issue and support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Are we agreed? Sorry, no. That's what I was going to do. I'm going to ask on the proposer to wind first of all then, please, and then we'll put it to the vote.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you for the contributions from the members. I will just address some of the points raised. Councillor McClelland brought up some points around motions that potentially could have been brought to, obviously tackle some of the issues that we're facing right now. But one of the most important issues that we face in our everyday life is clean drinking water, and this is one of the things that this motion aims to tackle. And he talks about this being a copy-paste job, but this issue is extremely important, and consistency and alignment between councils and Stormont is incredibly important, which is why this motion has been seen in other areas. It's also slightly hypocritical, seeing as we have seen very similar tactics from DUP on other issues only a few months ago. I would also point out the fact that we are the only area in the UK that does not have an independent environmental protection agency. So whenever it comes to trade issues, all the crying done about an RC border is all very convenient, but They're very happy for it to be there whenever it comes to environmental regulation. Look, at its heart, this is really about dealing with environmental protection. I find it a very, very important issue, and I want to see progress on it. And that is why I was encouraging all parties to support this motion. If this motion will be taken to a vote, I would ask that it be a recorded vote, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Alexander. Are we all agreed? No, then we're moving to a vote, and as requested, a recorded vote. The vote's open. Okay, members, we're about to close the vote here. Okay, vote closed. Alderman Barr, you have a light on here, but I can't take it during a vote. Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we have a result of the vote. The motion is carried by 20 votes to 16 with 1 abstention. And as it was a recorded vote, we will now call out the members. Those who voted yes: Councillor Alexander, Deputy Lord Mayor Johnston, Councillor Fergal Donnelly, Councillor Paul Duffy, Councillor Sarah Duffy, Councillor Kate Evans, Councillor Joy Ferguson, Councillor Julie Flaherty, Councillor Bruna Hockey, Councillor Keith Hockian, Councillor Peter Lavery, Councillor Liam Mackle, Councillor Ashley Mallon, Councillor Jude Mallon, Councillor Chris McCartan, Councillor Catherine Nelson, Councillor Mary O'Dowd, Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon, Councillor O'Kane, Councillor Kevin Savage. Those who voted no: the Lord Mayor, Councillor Scott Armstrong, Alderman Glenn Barr, Alderman Mark Baxter, Alderman Paul Berry, Alderman Adam Copeland, Councillor Peter Hare, Councillor Tim McClelland, Councillor Lavelle McElrath, Councillor Kyle Moutre, Councillor Alan Mulholland, Alderman Paul Rankin, Councillor Keith Radcliffe, Councillor Kyle Savage, Alderman Margaret Tinsley, Councillor Ian Wilson, and the abstention was Alderman Gordon Kennedy. Okay, members. Okay, members, we move on to the next notice of motion, which was proposed by Councillor Moutre, seconded by Councillor McElrath, and it is in relation to the proliferation of HMOs in the borough. Can I ask the proposer to speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tonight, members, I propose this motion out of a growing concern that many of us will be familiar with, and particularly those representing Portadown, and that is the continued proliferation of houses in multiple occupation. In Portadown alone, there are 38 licensed HMOs. That represents 65% of the total number across the entire borough, with a further 6 applications being granted approval through delegated authority in the last year alone. On one street alone in Portadown, there are 14 HMOs. These figures represent a clear shift in how those areas function and how they're experienced by residents. And questions deserve to be asked of council. What controls are in place? And are we doing enough to protect local communities from this sudden change in character? I believe, members, that we have reached a point where the cumulative impact of this proliferation can no longer be ignored. In so many cases, residents are telling us about the erosion of residential character, increased pressures on local services, and a growing sense that their communities are changing in ways that they were never properly planned for. And when councillors consider applications at committee, they are often forced to look at them in isolation on a case-by-case basis, without a clear framework to assess the wider cumulative effect. And that is the gap that this motion seeks to address. As a council, we already have powers available to us. The Houses and Multiple Occupation Act, Northern Ireland 2016, includes an over-provision test requiring regard to be given to the number of HMOs in each locality. And more recently, members, the Communities Minister, Gordon Lyons, has made it clear that councils should be going further, and that we should now be developing our own specific policies to manage HMO provision. And this includes setting limits on concentration where it's appropriate. He's also highlighted that some councils have not exercised these powers to their fullest extent, or not at all. I, along with other members, have been calling for an HMO-specific policy since December 2023. I was within a month of me actually becoming a councillor, and that's how long this topic has been debated. Members, there is a clear policy vacuum within this council, and already we are seeing other councils take this matter seriously. Just last month, Derry City and Strabane Council, who already have specific guidance on HMOs, unanimously approved a proposal to engage with DFI in order to change the interim threshold on HMOs from 30% to 10%, and as soon as practically possible. So the question for us today is simple. Are we content to remain without a clear local policy framework for HMOs? Or do we take responsibility for addressing an issue that is clearly affecting parts of our borough? Because without a bespoke HMO policy, we are left making decisions on a case-by-case basis, without the tools to properly consider things like scale, concentration, or the cumulative impact. It's about ensuring that when HMOs are considered, regard is given to ensuring they are in appropriate places and at appropriate levels, and in a way that protects the character and balance of our communities. So I am asking members tonight to support this motion and to support the urgent development of a specific local planning policy for HMOs to be brought forward through our local development plan process. Fundamentally, members, this is about giving ourselves the framework that we need to make better, more informed, consistent decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Moutray for bringing forward this motion. The issue with planning approval and licensing of houses in multiple occupation continues to stir much debate across most of the councils here in Northern Ireland, but it's certainly not a new issue for this council, in particular the Portadown area. As far back as late 21 and early 2022, I was relaying concerns to planners about the proliferation of HMO applications in the Thomas Street area of Portadown. When I spoke at Planning Committee as an objector, I was constantly faced with the same reaction. We don't have a policy, but we're working on it. That was over 4 years ago. Today, we're no further forward in terms of a policy. My colleague here has given some of the more recent statistics for the Portadown area. Make no mistake, members, developers are making hay while the sun shines, and from their perspective, why not? Unfortunately, we've allowed clustering of HMOs. We've also permitted sandwiching, where in at least one circumstance an elderly lady's home is sandwiched between 2 HMOs. It doesn't matter whether it's Portadown, Lurgan, Banbridge or wherever. We need a policy that meets the needs of the area, but not one that demonstrably changes it. We need a policy, members, that has area-based threshold at its heart, similar to the new Derry and Strabane model, supported by a policy on separation distances. Taken together, these 2 criteria will mitigate against clustering and sandwiching of HMOs and will allow the decision-making process to be made on a quantitative basis, not simply, as Councillor Moutray has said, on a case-by-case judgment. Members, the planning policy around HMOs in this council area needs to be reviewed and a new policy brought forward. That was my view in 2021, Lord Mayor, and it is even more relevant today. I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I want to bring in Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to put in record my thanks to Councillor Kyle Moutray and Councillor Lavelle McElrath for bringing this motion forward here this evening. This motion closely mirrors one brought forward actually by my TUV councillor colleagues Matthew Armstrong and Matthew Work in Mid and East Antrim last November. So it's encouraging to see this policy gaining traction. Houses and multiple occupancy HMOs are vital in meeting housing demand, particularly for students, young professionals and low-income households. However, this must never come at the expense of safety, quality or community cohesion. Too often HMOs fall short, overcrowding, poor maintenance and inadequate fire safety and antisocial behaviour are reoccurring issues. They are not minor failings, they pose real risk to life and must be treated as urgency. We must ensure properties are properly maintained, meet minimum standards and have functioning safety measures. At the same time, HMOs must work not only for landlords and tenants, but for the wider community. High concentrations of HMOs can strain neighbourhoods, leading to noise, parking issues, waste problems and less stable communities. Strong, connected neighbourhoods require balance, not oversaturation. This motion addresses that need. It supports the use of existing legislation to provide over-provision, strengthen enforcement and hold non-compliant landlords accountable, while recognising those who operate responsible. Ultimately, this is about responsibility, ensuring safety, ensuring standards and protecting communities' well-being. These are real concerns raised by residents, tenants and organisations, and it is our duty as a council to act. So I'd like to support this motion here tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Radcliffe. At this point, I want to make members aware that Alderman Greenfield has joined the meeting remotely, and I want to bring in Councillor Kevin Savage.
Lord Mayor, thank you very much for bringing me in. In relation to this motion, I think that it's something that we can support. You know, as Councillor Moutray did say, there's an over-concentration of HMOs in the Portadown area. I think he said there's 38, and I think across the Borough there's 54. We have a long way to go before we get anywhere near Belfast, where they're near 3,000. But I think it's important that we as a council have the powers to make decisions that affect the character and makeup of where we live. HMOs do have an important role to play, as Councillor Radcliffe mentioned there. They do fill a need, particularly for students, but importantly, they do help people who are on low incomes and benefits as well. And indeed, people who are under the age of 35 are only entitled to an accommodation rate at the shared amount. So they do have a place, but at the same time, we do know there has been issues around the borough, and indeed any type of housing tenure, if there's no over-concentration of it, does have the potential to cause problems and change the neighbourhood that they're actually in. But there's also an incumbency on landlords who own these buildings to take proper charge of them and to maintain them in a proper standard, and indeed to manage them to the letter of the law, and that's not happening. The council does have substantial enforcement powers in relation to landlords, and I had a quick look at the figures earlier in relation to enforcement against landlords, and it's not great anywhere in terms of taking action against them. So that is something that we can do as well, is ensure that landlords are held responsible and that their pursuit of profit isn't put ahead of the lives of our residents across the borough. So if the intent of this motion is to develop positive policies that improve the quality of lives of our residents, we will support. We'll work with all the parties in the development of this. I think work has already commenced. There has been workshops around the LDP, around HMOs, and I think it's incumbent upon us that if we do, it was alluded to about Derry and Strabane having policies. I think Belfast City Council is the same in around the Holy Lands in terms of percentages there. So I think if we look across the best practice by other councils, I think we can come up with a policy that meets the needs of our residents in taking this forward. So we're happy to support, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Next speaker is Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the proposer and seconder for bringing this motion. I just want to clarify three things. As been mentioned by other councillors, we are developing a HMO policy, and if I'm right, that's about to be published in around 2 months' time. And I think as part of that policy, there is a threshold proposed of around 10% for a street. There is a proposal to make sure that 2 HMOs cannot be side by side, and indeed there is, I think, in that a proposal where there cannot be sandwiching. So a HMO and then an ordinary dwelling and then a HMO beside it. So just for memory, I think a HMO policy is being developed and is hoping, I believe, to be published in the next 2 or 3 months for public consultation, and along with the rest of the LDP, if I can get that right, policy proposals contained in there, which I believe there's over 100. So it'll be a thorough public consultation. So we are sort of active in doing work on this, and it's about time we did have a HMO policy. The second point I want to raise, officers do provide recommendations to committee, and some of the HMO applications are, being recommended for approval. Again, I think there's only one which officers have recommended for refusal, which was then called in by an elected member and overturned at committee. I believe Police Councillor Lavelle McElrath was the person who called it into the committee. Lavelle might be able to speak to it further. So it is appropriate that we do have a HMO policy. The motion, I think in terms of the language, I think it's a wee bit inflammatory at the start, and as such I would like to propose a short amendment so that the first 2 paragraphs of the motion would now become that this council notes the concentration of houses of multiple occupation HMOs throughout ABC, and in particular a disproportionately high number located in Portadown. Council recognises that the residential character of local areas and the capacity of local amenity and infrastructure requires a balance of housing types, with the remainder of the motion remaining the same. So hopefully the proposer and seconder will be willing to take on those short amendments. Lord Mayor, thank you.
Councillor Lavery, can I ask that you would send your amendment through to Wendy, please, here?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we'll bring in Alderman Glenn Barr.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Yeah, supporting of the motion before us, and I concur with what members have said previously. Now, it has been mentioned a couple of times about the licensing around the HMOs, and I'm just wondering, can I ask a question of officers in terms of the licensing and the local development plan? Is that going to be effective for it? Because obviously licensing previously now, and there's ones in the system that, along with planning, and ones coming down the line. Will licensing be part of that local development plan?
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Can we bring in the head of planning then, please? Robbie McNaughter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So at the moment, licensing and planning do work together on these issues, and the licensing won't be granted where there's not a planning permission in place, where it's a new HMO renewals aren't subject to that test. So how this will work in practice will be that planning will come first, and the policy will look at the issues, and then the licensing will follow that, and we'll look at whether there's a planning permission in place. So that's ultimately how they'll work together. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Barr, you want to come in again?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to come back, and obviously it's a question to yourself then, Robbie. Do you think that the licensing should be tightened up? Thank you.
Thanks again, Lord Mayor. Not a planning issue, so I think just speaking more broadly in terms of where we are in terms of the LDP, so it's an issue that has been looked at, and members will be aware of the workshops on the issue. The timetable for progressing the LDP was taken to Planning Committee in January and has been ratified, so that's looking at starting some information sessions for members to help them understand this issue a bit better, and the wider LDP, looking ahead to taking that to Planning Committee notionally in June at the moment, and then looking at an independent examination after that with adoption of the policy in late 2028-29. So that's where we are in terms of progress across that, and that will bring in new policy on this issue that we'll be discussing with members shortly.
Okay, thank you. I want to bring in the Director, Elizabeth Rainey, at this point.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Alderman Barr, just to pick up on the licensing, those of you who are members on the Environmental Services Committee will be aware that we have had Kevin Bloomfield from Belfast City Council attend a number of meetings, and I hope that provided some reassurance around the HMO licensing process and the comprehensiveness around that licensing process, Alderman Barr. And I'm happy to pick this up with you directly afterwards, and even to share some of the statistics that was shared by Kevin Bloomfield at the Environmental Services Committee. And members, for those of you who attended that committee, there was opportunity for a number of questions, and I think it did provide actually reassurance around the licensing process and the controls around that process. Thank you.
Okay, I have Councillor Lavelle McElrath.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, listen, just to come back to Councillor Lavery on the point about lobbying or calling in an application. Councillor Radcliffe put it well when he said about HMOs serving a purpose in certain circumstances, and that's exactly right. And sometimes this party perhaps has been accused of going against HMOs for some particular reason. Of course, I lobbied and called in an application. It was in a rural area, Loughgall, where well-known fruit grower needed accommodation on site for his workers. So yeah, absolutely. And the second one, there was two actually that I lobbied on. The second one was a commercial property in Portadown that was being turned into apartments or HMO use. So absolutely, where the circumstances are right, this party and our councillors will absolutely fight the corner where that application is deemed, that we see it to be right. But the point of the motion, Lord Mayor, as far as I can gather, is the change, the demonstrable change to residential areas, and that's the difference. But yeah, absolutely, just to pick up and clarify the points made there by Councillor Lavery. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Okay, do we have a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Alexander. Okay, member service are now going to send each member a copy of the amendment. So if you want to take a minute or two to have a look at it, members, and then we'll come back in a moment or two, okay? Okay, members, can I ask, are you content that we proceed? I'm not hearing anything contrary, so I'm assuming that we do. Can I put it to Councillor Moutray if he wants to whine in relation to his proposal? Well, we're bringing that in after, yep, after he whines. That's what I'm advised here by the experts.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to everyone that's participated in a productive debate that I think has captured the essence of the motion here tonight. Look, in summary, I believe this to be a balanced and proportionate proposal. It seeks to ensure that we as a council are proactive, that we properly plan for the potential impacts of the overconcentration of HMOs, and that we finally use the powers already available to us. As I have mentioned previously this evening, other councils are already moving in this direction, introducing clear thresholds on HMO concentration. What this motion proposes is simply that we do the same, putting in place a clear, locally defined framework rather than relying on case-by-case judgments. Lord Mayor, can I ask that we have a recorded vote?
Okay, before we get to the vote, I'm going to ask our members content to include the amendment as proposed by the Alliance Party. Yes, everybody? No? Okay, then in that case, we'll go to a vote. Thank you, and it'll be a recorded vote as requested on the amendment. Yes, on the amendment as circulated, yeah. The vote is now open. Okay, members, the vote's about to close here. The vote is now closed. Okay, members, the result of the vote is as follows. The amendment falls by 18 votes to 19. Those who voted for the amendment: Councillor Alexander, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Fergal Donnelly, Councillor Paul Duffy, Councillor Sarah Duffy, Councillor Joy Ferguson, Councillor Bruna Hockey, Councillor Hockian, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Mackle, Councillor Mallon, Ashley Mallon and Councillor Jude Mallon, Councillor McCartan, Councillor Nelson, Councillor O'Dowd, Councillor O'Hanlon, Councillor O'Keehan, Councillor Kevin Savage. Those who voted no: myself, Councillor Scott Armstrong, Alderman Barr, Alderman Baxter, Alderman Berry, Councillor Copeland, Councillor Flaherty, Alderman Greenfield, Councillor Hare, Alderman Kennedy, Councillor McClelland, Councillor McElrath, Councillor Moutray, Councillor Mulholland, Alderman Rankin, Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Kyle Savage, Alderman Tinsley, Councillor Ian Wilson. So that is that. Then we come back to the original motion. Are members content that the original motion as proposed by Councillor Moutray and seconded by Councillor McElrath is accepted? Okay, thank you. Moving on then, swiftly before someone changes their mind. Can I have a proposer and seconder to go into committee for the consideration of confidential items of business? Councillor McClelland and seconded by Alderman Baxter. Members and listeners to the audio feed, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means we will be turning off the public audio feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to turn off and confirm with me? Thank you. Can I have a proposer and seconder to adopt the decisions taken in committee? Alderman Tinsley proposed, Alderman Baxter seconded and agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 10 is any other relevant business. We have one issue tonight, and that's the current issues with access for disabled rowers stroke users to the boat jetty in Portadown, and it's been put on the table by Councillor Peter Lavery. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for taking my AOB request. As members will be aware, the jetty at Portadown beside Portadown Boat Club is well used by the club and many other user groups. However, an issue with it is that it lacks disabled access, which means that disabled rowers are in a very difficult situation and they have to, I suppose, access the jetty in a very unedifying position. I want to pay tribute to Claire Duddy, who's pulled together a number of pieces of information, and to the club themselves, coming up with potential ideas. I suppose at this stage, Lord Mayor, given that there's a number of different landowners, user groups, options and different funding things that needs to be pulled together, I'd request that a meeting occurs with officers, relevant landowners, clubs, different user groups, as well as potential funders and elected representatives to see how the situation can be improved, with an appropriate options report being brought back to the relevant committee in due course. This is a great facility to have. It's an issue in terms of inclusivity, and if we're able to get the facility to a position where it's as inclusive as possible and getting many people of different sort of disabilities able to use the River Balm, which is a great asset for the Borough, the better. So if we can get a meeting organised on this, and we'll see what can be progressed. Thank you, Lord Mayor. If someone would like to second, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Catherine Nelson's next up.
That's it now. Thanks, Lord Mayor, for your patience. I'm always pressing these buttons when I shouldn't be. Yes, look, happy to second. Can I just be a little bit cheeky and add a second query to it? I have had contact about the Civic Centre boat launch, and the council is erecting steel poles preventing people from launching boats onto the public slipway. So I don't know why we're doing it or what the story behind that is, but if someone could come back to me, I'd really appreciate it.
Happy to incorporate that, Councillor Lavery. Thank you. In that case, Councillor Lavelle McElrath.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, just want to be associated with the remarks. It's not so long ago that we got wheelchair access for the fishing stands, and that was carried out in a number of the stands just nearby. So absolutely support getting a meeting together. I'm just looking to clarify, Councillor Nelson, is she talking about the slipway in Portadown? No.
No. Here.
Oh, here. Sorry. Just, well, could I add a third point?
See what you've started.
When I heard slipway mentioned there, Lord Mayor, obviously following on from the search and rescue for Andrew Robinson, there were issues identified with the Portadown slipway at Shillington Ski, and if we're having a meeting with the various agencies, it would be good maybe if we could tag that on as well, if Councillor Lavery's happy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lavery. Okay. Councillor Kyle Savage.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. All right, we don't have slipways anymore. Anyway, just want to be aligned with that as well, because I've seen it firsthand in Portadown at the regatta, a disabled person having to make their way down the steps, and it's not on in this day and age. But this has been raised with officers on many, many occasions over the years, and I hope now we can finally get to a conclusion and get this sorted out once and for all. In this day and age, we should not have this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor Lavery back in.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to confirm, I'm happy for those additions, and if members do have any other issues regarding inclusivity matters, regarding issues of this nature, maybe they could email them in and we'll get them discussed too. If these issues are being raised, it's important they should be resolved rather than sit here for years. So hopefully get progress on this. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to bring in the Director, Jonathan Hayes.
Thank you, Chair, and members. Again, thank you for your comments in relation to these matters. So yes, Claire will take the lead on this and arrange the meeting with the appropriate authorities. Members will also be aware over the last number of years, Council has been quite successful in the access and inclusion funding through from the department, which would have funded a number of these projects, including this particular project. But as you know, the department have ceased that funding over the last year or so. So we wait with interest to see whether or not that access and inclusion funding will reopen again. Should it reopen again, then certainly this is a project that would sit very neatly within that project. But certainly in the meantime, we're happy to take members' points and comments on board and arrange those meetings as required. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. That brings to a close tonight's business. Members, can I thank you for your cooperation and wish everyone a safe journey home. Thank you.